Also, keep an eye on... Wait a minute. And that, folks, in real time, was the moment that your girl found the licensing fee for Invictus. That's right, Invictus Games Foundation had to accept money from Invictus Birmingham to use the Invictus name. And guess who paid? The taxpayers. The UK taxpayers paid that. Yeah, it's good times, good times. Anyway, if you want to catch up, if you are new here, hi, welcome. My name is Rachel. I'm an airline pilot by day, and when I'm on the ground, I like to study business, and most recently, the business of charities. Now, I did do part one that came out earlier this week. If you want to go and read that, they redacted a lot. It wasn't only like the budget, like they redacted like risks. Like, why would you redact risks? Like, anyway, just crazy stuff. Again, all my opinions, remember, airline pilot, I make metal tubes fly through the sky. I am not a journalist. I don't have like a legal department behind me. It's just me emailing and like asking for FOIs and stuff. So anyway, so what I ended up doing was the way that this all started was I was cross-checking Invictus's Vancouver numbers and they weren't adding up. Even with the numbers that they provided, I only tried searching for two particular sections. And you'll see that it's like, it says $63 million like in the thumbnail title. But I tried accounting for 21 million and I could only account for about 12. And I was being really generous too. And I was using numbers that Invictus themselves had provided on their website. And I was led to, I want to be very careful, I was led to a document that was uploaded kind of on the back end of Invictus Vancouver, and it was a completely, well, the budget was completely redacted. It was between the Canadian government and Invictus Games, which I thought was interesting because it's charity, like, and it's an event for veterans. Like, why would the budget be redacted? Anyway, yeah, so I figured, you know what, Birmingham's next year. Let me see if I can kind of get ahead of the curve and I can sort of figure out what's going on beforehand, and then maybe enough people in the UK will write into the Office of Veteran Affairs that they'll put pressure on it for more transparency for Invictus. Because in this economic environment, when libraries in Birmingham are getting cut $2 million a year, you go, okay, why are they getting cut £2 million a year? Why is Invictus getting up to a $26 million underwrite for 9 days? That's the only question I'm asking. Again, not anti-veteran, I'm not anti-celebration, but again, I just want to make sure this is the best use of money. For those of you who don't know, I am literally alive because of a veteran. My uncle came to this country when I was, well, I wasn't even born yet, but my uncle came to this country from Guatemala. My mother was brought over after the first 10 years of his service, and then I was born a few years later. So I am literally alive because of a veteran and the sacrifices that he made for our family. So I'm very protective when it comes to veterans, and I don't want them to be kind of used as a shield for possible, like, you know, overspending or something. Like, I want to make sure the money actually gets to the people that it says it's supposed to help. And 26 million pounds, if you divide that up into 500 participants, is still $50,000, a little over $50,000 per participant. So anyway, part one goes through my initial letter and documents 1, 2, and 3. This video is going to go over documents 4 through 8, some receipts, that moment that I realized what the licensing fee was, as well as my response letter. Now, I am in communication with them, and I do leave the email up so you guys can go and conduct your own investigation. But if you do conduct your own investigation, remember, these are people pulling documents, okay? You're not actually talking to Invictus. So even though you can hear the passion in my voice with some of this stuff, if you do conduct your own investigation, do come from a place where you're just technical with your questions. Don't be rude, don't be disrespectful. These are just people working in an office. So, you know, come at them from a place of like, hey, I noticed that, you know, Rachel is conducting this investigation. I'd like to start my own, and then ask your own questions. Or you can also contact me on my shop's website, which is montecito minimalist.com. There's a little contact form there. You can say, hey, Rachel, you should ask this question that way, or did you think to ask this? Like, I'm always open for any kind of criticisms. Always cross-check my work. I always say that. And yeah, and you can also shop while you're there. Go ahead and peruse. I did just launch the Burn After Reading candle set, which comes with a wick cutter and matches. So, and don't worry, all wicks are included with the purchase of candle. So there you go. So if you want to support me in that way, you can. Also, if you want to support me, just subscribe. It's right down there. It's free, you know. You can do that as well. So yeah, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Yeah, enjoy. Lots of numbers, but enjoy. All right. So now attachments 4 and 5 are pretty much the same. This is where the grant wording came about. So this is basically just like the contract for the actual grant itself. What I find to be interesting, and I mean, I guess this is probably for everyone, but they talk about financial irregularity. So if you look, financial management and prevention of bribery, corruption, fraud, and other irregularity. So it does say, like, obviously you can't bribe. The grant recipient must have a sound administration and audit process, including internal financial controls to safeguard against fraud, theft, money laundering, counterterrorist financing, or any other impropriety or mismanagement in connection with the administration of the grant. The grant shall require that the internal, external auditors report on the adequacy or otherwise of that system. All cases of fraud or theft, whether proven or suspected relating to the funded activities, must be notified to the authority as soon as they are identified. The grant recipient shall explain to the authority what steps are being taken to investigate the irregularity and shall keep the authority informed about the progress of such investigation. The authority, however, requests that the matter may be referred to external auditors or other third parties as required. And let me see, the authority has the right and at its absolute discretion to insist that the grant recipient address any actual or suspected fraud, theft, or any other financial irregularity and or to suspend future payment of the grant to the grant recipient. Any grounds for suspecting financial irregularities include what the grant recipient, acting with due care, should have suspected, as well as what it actually proved. And for the purposes of 9.4, financial irregularity includes, but is not limited to, potential fraud or other impropriety, mismanagement, and the use of grant for any purpose other than those stipulated in the grant funding agreement. The grant recipient may be required to provide statements and evidence to the authority or the appropriate organization as part of pursuing sanctions or criminal or civil proceedings. And then if we go down just a couple more pages to 22, there is a clawback of events of default, termination, and rights reserved for breach and termination. The authority may exercise its rights set out in paragraph 26.3 if any of the following events occur. The grant recipient uses the grant for the purpose other than the funded activities. The grant recipient fails to comply with its obligations under the funding agreement. The grant recipient uses the grant for ineligible expenditure. The grant recipient fails, in the authority's opinion, to make satisfactory progress to the funded activities, and in particular with meeting the agreed output set in Annex 6 of these conditions. The grant recipient fails to submit an adequate remedial action plan by the authority or improve delivery of funded activities. The grant recipient, in the opinion of the authority, delivering the funded activities in a negligent manner. Grant recipient fails to declare duplicate funding, fails to declare match funding, receives funding from a third party in which the opinion of the authority undertakes activities that are likely to bring the reputation of the funded activities into disrepute. And then it continues on how it breaches a code of conduct, you know, how if things transfer. I mean, it's interesting stuff. Again, it seems more like legal language than it does anything else, but there is a way for them to get out if they want to, if they believe that it's hurting the reputation down the road. I mean, that's kind of where I see like a lot of it is just sort of like if the reputation is affected in any particular way, then it seems like funding can be pulled. And then if we continue going down here, these are just aims for the funded activities. Here's $374,000. This was between April 24 and August of 2024. Business development, activities through commercial strategy, planning for future games delivery, website development, social media and digital creative content, video production and editing. This all cost $374,136. April, May, June, July, August, for 5 months. $300,000. And then we go down to Annex 5, eligible expenditure schedule. Yeah. Again, more just sort of legal language, sort of, nothing that's going to really jump out at us. Like I went through it, it's all just kind of boring stuff. Now, Attachment 5 is the same document, but for a different grant. And we'll go over the receipts of the grants together. All right, so Attachment 5, Annex 2, the funded activities. Again, why is this redacted? On 23rd of July, 2024, the outcome of the UK bid was publicly announced and the IGF announced the City of Birmingham as the proposed host. Redacted. Why? That doesn't, I don't even... Anyway, so this is a request for $643,000. There was overages, we'll go over it. But the UK is requesting $643,000, again, redacted. Like you have a chart, you took the time to make the chart, but again. And then we have the reasons, right? In the development period, Invictus UK will seek Charity Commission approval, develop appropriate government structure, implement effective financial management, implement appropriate organizational policies, redacted. Enter into appropriate contracts with key delivery partners, involve business plans and risk register from the UK bid document, development of key strategies to support future and delivery, including impact, sustainability. Anyway, so the $643,594 was what they were asking for. And we will go over those receipts in a little bit. Also, keep an eye on wait a minute. I don't know if they wanted me to find this Easter egg or they just forgot to redact this as well, because there's so much they have to redact. But they have the $643,000 here. I have the grant receipt, which I'll show you. And yeah, I'm just we'll do the math together. I'm just gonna sort of cross-check this with you. But continuing on for Attachment 5, it's the same thing. We have the, hey, you gotta give us all your information for the grants and whatnot. And then it continues on with the same exact legal language. Like I said, it's, they're both identical. All right, so here's Attachment 6. Now here's that Office of Veteran Affairs. The forecasted budget is $643,594. Okay. Now, remember, I said in the other, this is redacted, right? We've got commercial and operations, staff costs, external legal, initial PR and marketing, redacted, and then initial development of key strategies. Now, what I find interesting is that the grant was received with $643,594. We can take a look here. So commercial, and because remember, this is Annex 5. This is stuff that the MOD gave me, okay? But if we look, commercial and operational costs, $55,000. Okay, that matches. Staff costs and reasonable travel expenses, $382,400. D, external legal costs, yep, that's $84 and $84. initial PR marketing costs 23 and 23. The redacted portion, which is 48,000. And then initial development of key strategies to support future delivery, $50,000. So from that, we can deduce that branding, licensing, because remember, Invictus gets a licensing fee, observer costs and other costs to be paid to the IGF as part of the event hosting agreement. Why is this being paid via the government? Why is this part of the grant? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So now we know. It's about a $50,000 fee. You can redact everything. Yeah, so that's it. So the licensing deal is about $50,000. What I find interesting is the total grant funding received was $643,000, but then it also shows the difference of $43,594. So do I add that on top? So then that comes out to $91,844? It's just weird the way that they say that there was like an overage, right? They're like, oh, well, no, but it's 40. So I'm like, okay, that's the funding received, but there's no fixed assets. So I'm like, I don't. But then $43,594 is literally like so I'm like, was it a $600,000 grant that they went over? I'm not entirely sure. And maybe I missed something. So let me know if I ended up missing something. So that's attachment 6. Attachment 7 is another grant addendum notice. Nothing really big here. It's just there's a signature. Again, it's just here's $84,000. This is the additional funding that they need. And it's reason for variation, $14,000 per month for 6 months between October of 2025 and March of 2026. So I'm assuming right now there's additional grants that are being funded, especially as Invictus picks up. All right, and then if we go to attachment 8, this is a $3.5 million bill that Invictus is asking the government to pay for $3.5 million for the period of April to September of 2026. So April, May, June, July, August, September. $3.5 million. Let's just humor me for a second here. Let's see how much this is over the course of 6 months. Okay. Remember, this is taxpayer money. Libraries in Birmingham were cut $2 million in expenditure for a year. This is 3.5 for 6 months. Per month, that comes out to $591,108.50. And if we were going to do that by day, because remember, I think when we do not have that much money, we don't think about, we're like, millions. No. Per day over 6 months, that is $19,425 a day. Invictus is spending $20,000 a day starting right now. Actually, last month. No, actually, 2 months ago. Games aren't even on yet. $3.5 million for 6 months. Now, the amount allotted for this grant is $6.7 million. So, anyway. Who signed it? I don't know. It's redacted, but it's the director of the Office of Veteran Affairs. And then the recipient, of course, is the CEO of Invictus. So, anyway. That's attachment 8. The other ones, we'll go through these quickly. I find these odd. This is the Invictus Games Birmingham. These are invoices. So this is the actual, like, when they were paid. Here's $710,000 that was paid on March 31. Invoice number 5. Then they sent me invoice number 6 for $1.359 million, paid 9th of June, 2025. And then they jumped to invoice 9 at $375,000, paid September of last year. And then we have, what do we have? Invoice 10, that's right, these two go in order. This is $413,000, paid in December. And then we have $1,074,000, paid 1st of April, 2026. This is invoice 13. So they didn't send me all the invoices, which is fine because I'm sure I didn't ask for what was being paid. Or those might have been the actual ones that were considered, you know, confidential and whatnot. I will read you guys now what I sent. Dear Sir or Madam, thank you for your response to FOI 2026/09 or 07918 regarding public funding and financial arrangements conducted to the Birmingham Invictus Games 2027. I would like to submit the following request for recorded information under the FOI Act. Incremental release of funding. In your response, you state that funding is allocated on a contingent needs-led basis and is released incrementally. Please provide any of the recorded information relating to the criteria, milestones, reporting requirements, approval process, or financial conditions used to determine when Birmingham Invictus Games 2027 funding is released incrementally. Any internal guidance, assessment framework, or decision-making process used to approve subsequent releases of funding, and any condition attached to the release of additional grant tranches. Number 2, financial monitoring and risk reporting. Please provide copies of any financial monitoring reports, progress reports, cash flow forecasts or updates, variance reports, risk assessments, sponsorship risk assessments, delivery assurances, or financial oversight documents submitted by or relating to Invictus UK 2027 Limited in connection with public funding for the Birmingham Invictus Games 2027. Sponsorship shortfall risk, Your response states that the $26 million underwrite was agreed as a contingency to ensure delivery of the games if sufficient commercial sponsorship was not secured. Please provide any recorded information related to anticipated, projected, or actual commercial sponsorship shortfalls, discussions of risk associated with insufficient sponsoring funding, contingency planning relating to sponsorship gaps, financial modeling or assessment regarding sponsorship dependency. Number 4, delivery cost. Your response notes that the expenses referred to in Grant Addendum 2 relate to delivery costs. Please provide any available breakdown of these delivery costs, including categories of expenditure and allocated amounts. Number 5, public funding protections. Please provide any recorded information confirming whether public funding provided to Invictus UK 2027 Limited includes any clawback provisions, repayment obligations, underspend return requirements, recovery mechanisms, financial guarantees, or other protections for public funds. If such provisions exist, please provide relevant clauses, schedules, correspondence, or policy documents setting them out. Number 6, public interest and redactions. Where information is withheld under Section 43-2, commercial interest, I request that the Department consider whether partial disclosure, summary disclosure, or disclosure within limited redactions may be possible given the substantial public interest in transparency and accountability surrounding the use of taxpayer-backed funding for the games. If any part of this request is considered too broad, please treat this correspondence as a request for advice and assistance under Section 16 of the Act and advise how the requests may be refined. I would prefer electronic copies only. And that was my response. Now, usually I have some kind of like a thesis or an outro, but as you can see, I am still in communication with them. So I don't really have that just yet, and I don't know if I will necessarily have that. The reason why I am quite passionate about this is because well, if you know, I've said this in my other videos, but if you haven't seen those, my uncle came to this country from Guatemala, came to the United States from Guatemala, and after the first 10 years of service, brought my mother over. So I am literally alive. I would not exist without my wonderful uncle. And you know, and I've said this as well before, is I'm not against celebration. I'm not you know, anti-veteran in any kind of capacity. But I am aware that a lot of charities will use veterans as kind of like a shield to go, well, you can't question what we're doing with the money. We're raising it in the name of veterans. And it's like, yeah, but is it actually getting to the people? And that's what I'm asking here. Even if you look at what the $26 million underwrite or override or whatever, the $26 million that they promised in case Invictus can't get commercial financing, that's still $52,000 per player if we have 500 players. You know, and $52,000 is a lot of money. That's enough money to go in and do any kind of home modifications for someone who is now in a wheelchair, that is someone who can buy new prosthesis, that is someone who can, that's a chunk of change towards a beautiful brand new car that can be wheelchair accessible. That's mental health for, you know, that's for years, that's mental health assistance. For more than, you know, it's a lot of money. And so when you see things like in Birmingham where rubbish is picked up every other week because of budget cuts and budget constraints and libraries are losing funding, you go, well, why do libraries lose $2 million of funding when Invictus can get $26 million of funding? And that's where it's like, that's fine, but like, is the money being used in such a way where it's A, actually getting to the people that need it, and B, you know, is that the best use of money that we can have? Because again, like if you break it down and you say, okay, well, Birmingham lost $2 million for their budget for their libraries annually, and then Invictus gets $26 million for, you know, a year and a half of like putting stuff together and then like a 9-day span of games. You go, okay, well, do we launch Invictus for a year, or do we run our libraries for 10 years? Plus, the other thing that I don't quite understand is if, in fact, Invictus is as successful as they say it is, and it is such an economic driver, and the UK is going through financial hardship, as the rest of the planet is, why do they need taxpayer money? Why can't they just find sponsors? Why do they even need a $26 million override? That's what I don't understand, right? This is Prince Harry, after all. You know, and it's like, I don't understand why taxpayer funds even need to go to this particular event, because it is so successful according to all of the literature that I've read. You know, and this is also coming at a time, and maybe sponsors are seeing this too, the Invictus opening game, someone left a comment and I read this and I thought very interesting timing. But the Invictus Games next year fall at the very end of Wimbledon. As we all know, Princess Catherine presents the trophy at the end of Wimbledon, which is a big tennis tournament. And then the games end around Camilla's 80th birthday. So maybe sponsors don't want to, I don't know. I have no idea. Again, I'm not putting my own personal opinion on there. But at the same time, it's like, well, if it is such a successful venture, why are you going after taxpayer money to begin with? I mean, I think these are all just questions to ask. And, you know, I get it. I'm not a UK citizen. I've seen your messages. Before you pick on the UK, go and look at yourself in the mirror. You know, it's like, no, I get it. I understand that. But ultimately, this is about veterans? Ultimately, is the money getting to where it really needs to go? And that's all I'm asking. Now, this investigation will continue. You'll probably see a few parts to it. Like I said, here's the email address. There it is, people-ova-veterans@mod.gov.uk. And I will keep this up for the rest of the video, but there you have it. There, if you want to write your own questions, if you think there's questions that I should ask, if you want to contact me, again, you can go on montecitoMinimalist.com. You can just hit the contact form. All those come to me. And you know, if there's any, if you want to start your own investigation, use that. That's the email, because it took me a couple tries to get to the right people. But again, be cordial, be respectful. Remember, these are people that are just doing research, and they're asking questions as well. So don't be mean. Don't get emotional. You know, just ask a question. Just, hey, thought I should ask this, and then see what they say. Yeah, because again, we're all working on this. They're pulling funding. They have to ask people to go and, you know, for permission to send this stuff over to me and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, just again, be cordial, be kind. Okay, it costs nothing to be kind. Don't get emotional when you write this stuff. I know it's an emotional thing, and it's you know, especially like when, I mean, and you probably can hear the emotion in my voice when I talk about library funding versus, you know, funding the games. But yeah, I just think it's interesting, and like I said before, you know, if it's successful, then why are they going after taxpayer money? I'll be back. I'll keep you guys posted on additional documents that I get. I don't know if they're actually gonna. They did confirm receipt of the email. I don't know if they're actually gonna give anything. But yeah, also, and I'll be completely honest with you, I've contacted a lot of reporters at really big, high-end like publications and media outlets and stuff. There's a lot of, from what I have been told, there are lots of like legal departments, and so then they have to go to their legal department, and they have to go to like Invictus's legal department, and then it's this whole, you know, kind of a thing. And so yeah, I would just say, do not expect this getting picked up by the mainstream media at any time. So that's what I mean. If the Office of Veteran Affairs gets enough people interested in this, they might see that there is interest to see where taxpayer money is going. But like I said, you know, it seems that multiple journalists, networks, newspapers, they go, that's really great research you're doing, like, but oh well, lawyers, you know, and I'm like, I get it. I completely understand it, because again, like, you know, it's like anything, you know, the lawyers are always the ones that win. So, but yeah, I just ask questions, you know, like I said here, I just cross-checked my own documents here. Maybe you'll get a set of documents as well that you can cross-check, and you can find something. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. But I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm still trying to figure out a travel vlog. I'm actually kind of shy when it came to traveling. I didn't take a single picture. I took like a couple of selfies with my husband, but I didn't take like any pictures or videos. I'm not like an influencer. I'm not going to be like, here I am walking, you know. It's less like, I have a lot of video of me walking around, but it's all facing outside. So I'll see about doing a travel vlog. It might be a little dry for your taste. Maybe it's just ASMR. But anyway, yeah, conduct your own investigation. Let me know questions that you would like me to ask, and you know, I'll keep asking. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. It's weird not having any kind of a conclusion, but yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and enjoy your week. Thanks for watching. Bye.